dream. I saw black slaves in 2018, pulling the big king with a crown in the middle, looking like tug of war. I guess they forgot the inheritance of the Lord, dying over streets when God gave him the earth. It's all in the Bible, just do your research. White man's religion, that's just fake news. The cross hit Africa for Europe even knew. This ain't black versus white, this is dark versus light. But racism might distract you from the Christ on sight. So here's the Visine, me and my team. Dark world, but we flipping on a high beam. King, K is for the knowledge, I is to inspire. N for the nurture, the G is to grow higher. Jesus lit the match, so we all on fire. You see a crown on the attire, know you looking at a fighter.
My people, we're ready to mount up like an eagle.
In entertainment, unfortunately today I don't have my boy with me, Power 05 DJ Ramo. But we have another esteemed gentleman in the building. He has done phenomenal work as it relates to journalism, especially particularly in the sports world. Put your hands together for my man Chris Broussard. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm great, man. It's an honor to be here with you.
Well, it's more of an honor for me. You know what I mean? Chris is a good guy. Known him for a little bit. But let's jump right in, man. People want to know. I mean, we're going to start from the beginning. And that is, how did you get started in media?
In media? Well, I majored in English. I went to Oberlin College, a small liberal arts school in Ohio. And for me, I'm going to be honest. When I was a sophomore in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I started out as an economics major. I took intro to econ, and that kind of ended my economics career. And so as a sophomore, I looked around, I saw all my friends, they knew what they wanted to do. Teammates, I played basketball there, college teammates were going to, knew they were going to law school or knew they were going to study public policy in grad school. My girlfriend knew she was going to med school and be a doctor. So I looked around and said, man, I don't know what I want to do. I got scared. So I took something I enjoyed, which was sports, plus something I was gifted at, which was writing. I always had a gift of writing. And I said, let me try to be a sports writer. And then the summer after my junior year, I was fortunate enough to get a summer internship at the Cleveland Plain Dealer, which was the biggest newspaper in Ohio at the time. And from there, that's really where it began. I did well that summer. Then when I graduated, they offered me a job. So I started out covering high school sports in Cleveland, Ohio. And then Akron, Ohio. That's how I got to meet some of the people that ended up working with LeBron James and got tight with some of his people. And then 5 years after I graduated, I started covering the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And they, you start working an NBA beat, and then TV opportunities come, and then radio opportunities. And so it just kind of mushroomed from there. And now I'm all TV. I don't write anymore, but I do TV and radio now.
But you played college ball though, right?
Yeah.
Is that D3?
Division III, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when did you realize that that just wasn't going to be in the? I'm pretty sure you played.
I wasn't going pro.
Yeah, you wasn't going to go pro.
I should have realized
it a lot sooner.
I should have realized a lot earlier than I did. But I think when
somebody say, "Yo, Chris, man, you alright?" Did somebody tell you, or did you just say to yourself?
I wasn't stupid. I could see I wasn't good enough to make it to the NBA. But
you wasn't getting picked last.
I would say when I went to college, because our school actually had somebody get drafted a few years earlier in the NBA by the Cavaliers. That's when the draft was 12 rounds or whatever. And so I think in my fantasies, I was like, man, if I really play well, you never know, But I was not an NBA level player by any stretch of the imagination. And I did okay in college. I started, but I wasn't like a superstar or anything. So you just start to realize, you're not making it to the pros. So I figured, let me try to write about it, and it has been great. It's obviously a very fun and exciting, enjoyable career. I've been to, just from covering basketball, not vacations, not my own personal travels, been to Africa, Spain, Italy, London, Canada, every big city in the United States, Kuwait, in the Middle East. So all these plays, I probably missed a few just covering basketball. So it's been a blessed experience, and I'm very thankful for it.
That's a phenomenal journey.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna get anywhere close to that, but
Hey, you never know,
we
man.
in New York, so yeah.
Yeah, you never know.
So let's jump to the playoffs, man. Who
You
who's
a
going
Knicks
to the
fan?
big-
Knicks in
who-
it?
No, I'm a Spurs fan. I'm
Oh,
a
you
Spurs
old.
fan.
Wow.
I'm a Spurs fan. How can we get you to become a Knicks fan, man? What
I like
you
the
have.
Knicks.
You always say that.
I don't
but
hate.
listen.
I'm just a truth teller.
Okay.
And New Yorkers get mad because they don't want to hear the truth. You know, they want me to just be a fanboy for the Knicks. But I tell the truth, it hasn't been a lot to speak positively about with the Knicks. But I do like their new front office. Scott Perry is a very good GM. Steve Mills is a very good, executive. Obviously, you have Kristaps Porzingis. We see who they hire as a head coach. I think that's the first step in the kind of turning things around for him.
Would you take the job?
Would I take the job?
Yeah.
Man, depends on the money.
money?
I'll probably take it for the money.
For the
I'll
money?
probably take it for the money.
Okay.
Shoot.
So what does the playoffs look like for you? I mean, obviously,
I think it's
first
been
couple
the playoffs. Thankfully, have been more exciting than any of us could have imagined when the NBA season started. Remember, everybody thought, all the general managers in the league thought it'd be Cleveland and Golden State again, and it might end up being that. Although Cleveland obviously looks like they might have a tough time getting there, but with Golden State, with some of the injuries. The West looks a lot more competitive now. And depending on when Steph Curry gets back, I think that New Orleans, I would pick the Warriors. But if Steph is not close to the typical Steph Curry, then I think New Orleans might have a shot. And so that's exciting. Even if they don't win it, if they can make it a competitive series. Houston obviously is up 2-1 on Minnesota, but they don't look invincible. They don't look as good as they looked in the regular season. And so that's an interesting side of the bracket. And then the East is just wide open. It's literally wide open. I do feel like if it's not Cleveland and LeBron, it better be Philadelphia, because I'm just always in TV thinking from a rating standpoint. I don't think people are going to be interested in it if it's Toronto or Milwaukee doesn't have a shot, but Boston, Milwaukee, anybody but Cleveland with LeBron or Philadelphia with the young Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, I don't think it'll grab the interest of the public, unfortunately. So hopefully it's one of those two teams, but I think Philadelphia's the team of the future. And so it's an exciting time. And I think they have the formula, the ingredients to eventually challenge a Golden State or a Houston.
You're thinking more a couple of years, though. You're not talking about like now.
I'm thinking about next year.
Okay.
Which is early, a lot sooner. The process is a lot sooner than we thought. But the way to play with Golden State, who is the juggernaut of the league, is to, in my view, is to play big, but have adequate or above adequate three-point shooting. You can't just play big and not have three-point shooting. And you can't just have three-point shooting because you're not going to outshoot them. But Philadelphia with Joel Embiid and beyond Embiid, Ben Simmons is 6'10". Dario Saric is 6'10". Ersan Ilyasova is 6'10". Like, they have size. Robert Covington 6'9". They're a big team even when they play small. So they can go inside and pound Golden State with Embiid, but they can also shoot the three-pointer. So I think that as they mature, that might be the formula of a team that could beat even a healthy Golden State eventually. Because if you look at the teams that have given them trouble at times, San Antonio at times has given them trouble when they play big. When they go with Gasol and LaMarcus Aldridge inside. Memphis, believe it or not, over the years, the last few years since Golden State became great, has been one of their tougher opponents. Along with Cleveland. When Cleveland beat them, it was playing tough, physical basketball. Cleveland hurt itself by thinking they tried to get cute. We want to shoot threes. We want to be this finesse team. And they try to play like Golden State, but they don't have as much shooting.
They don't have that
and
range.
they don't understand that. So they've lost their identity that's why they're in the position.
Well, talking about, I mean, you touched on, it's no secret that you are a LeBron fan.
I like LeBron, Ohio, fellow Ohio guy. You know,
Yeah.
I'm from Ohio.
I got
He's a
some
great
LeBron
player.
fan,
Just I like
you
him
know.
as a great player.
He is. I mean, you
and
can't take
obviously
that from
does
him.
great stuff off the court.
So I've been watching, and there's two great challenges there, I guess, for his situation. And there's one, they're always talking about finding that second guy to work with LeBron, which is a very big challenge because anybody that plays with LeBron, and you said this in the past, and I agree with you, it's kind of like you got to be willing to take that back seat.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can't just have a role player. You got to have somebody that can deliver. So I think that that's a major challenge for LeBron. And I don't think if they don't find anything, and again, you're more experienced at this game than I am. If they don't find somebody, I don't think he can move them to that. He needs that help.
He can't win another championship without a superstar. I mean, he hasn't won one without a superstar. And that's not a slight on him. But if you look at it historically, that's what it takes. You know, a lot of people want to rip LeBron and say he hasn't lifted teams. LeBron's had a Hall of Fame, and I'm projecting Kyrie Irving will be a Hall of Famer. He's had a Hall of Fame teammate 7 seasons of his career, and he's won 3 championships in those 7 years. Now that's comparable. Magic Johnson had Hall of Fame teammates for 12 of his years. He won 5. That's actually a slightly lower percentage than LeBron. Larry Bird had Hall of Fame teammates for 13 years. He won 3 championships. So that's a worse percentage. So the only one with a much better percentage of winning when you have Hall of Fame teammates is Michael Jordan. And that's why he's the GOAT.
So do you believe that when a player is a great all-around player, that can hinder them from being successful in the team? Because I've heard that. I've heard that there are players out there who, and you can even look at LeBron. LeBron is, what's the word? You use this word, matter of fact. I didn't realize it was you. You called him a hybrid. Was it you who someone called him a hybrid? I think it was you.
A lot of
people
people
they say he can play
hybrid.
so many different positions. Yeah, you're right. It is usually used in sports. So he plays all these different positions, and it's said that if he just focused on one particular area, that it would be easier to match people and place people around him rather than him kind of bounce all over the place.
Yeah, I do think. I do think LeBron is so good that he can pretty much do just about everything, and he does everything, and he kind of becomes his own system. Like the triangle is a system, there's a LeBron system. Because everywhere he goes, if you look at his career, first in Cleveland, then Miami, back to Cleveland, they've essentially played the same way. Now, lately Cleveland plays slightly differently. You know, they get a little more ball movement and a little more other guys involved. But for the most part, it's still LeBron creating everything. And he's so good that he can do it and take that team to a high level. But that is not as good of a system as a team, 5 guys working together who can really play, who can really shoot. And those are the teams that have really given LeBron trouble. You look at San Antonio, your Spurs, when they beat him in 2014, his last year in Miami. That was an old Spurs team. Tim Duncan was like a shadow of himself. I mean, Ginobili was even still playing well, but still old. You know, and Parker was toward the end of his prime. But they ran circles around Miami because they moved the ball, they played smart, and they could shoot threes. And Golden State obviously has been a thorn in his side. So I do think it's hard to say. Would they in Miami? Would they have been better if LeBron would have said, "I'm just a point guard," or "I'm just a typical small forward and I average 30 points a game and 8 or 9 rebounds and get you 6 assists"? It's hard to say if they would have been better. You know, like I said, if you look at the percentages, Magic was a guy that got everybody involved, and he had a bunch of Hall of Famers, and he only won 5 in 12 years with those Hall of Famers. And Bird, same way, 3 and 13. So I agree. I tend to feel like one of the advantages of Michael Jordan had over LeBron in this greatest of all time conversation is that Jordan could play in a system. He wasn't ball dominant. As much as he scored and all that, he didn't just over dribble and create every single thing for his teammates. There are a lot of possessions he didn't touch the ball. You know, even sometimes critical possessions. And so he could, because of those 3 years he spent in North Carolina, and because the basketball landscape was different at that time, I think he grew up knowing how to play in a system where he didn't have to do everything to be effective. LeBron's kind of a product of his, not only his greatness, but his time in basketball. I mean, look at that era. Allen Iverson was the same way. Russell Westbrook is the same way. Steve Nash is a different type of player, but he dominated the ball. Chris Paul dominated the ball for most of his career. Dwayne Wade played like that. Kobe to a somewhat extent. You know, like players that came up looking at Michael Jordan kind of misread, oh, Jordan does everything. Well, they didn't look at the fundamentals, look at him playing with his teammates. They just began to see the one-on-one play. And then AAU basketball, the best player dominates the ball and does everything he wants. They're not coming down throwing post-entry passes and posting up and things like that. So
Showtime.
That's just he's a kind of a product of, he's played this way his entire life. Like if you go back and see him in high school, he was playing, doing everything. They had a point guard who was good, and at times he'd bring it up, but a lot of times LeBron would bring it up, you know, just like he does now. So it's just kind of the way the game was at that time, and I think we're now entering a different era. Golden State's changed everything. Golden State's brought it back to ball movement, player movement, not as much ISO and shooting. And you look at Philadelphia, Ben Simmons doesn't over-dribble, dominate the ball. It's more ball movement. Look at New Orleans. Rondo doesn't over-dribble and dominate, but teams that are moving the ball, moving your players around, they're starting to have a lot of success now, so it's going to change.
Which is why I'm a Spurs fan.
Spurs have
always played that system.
Yeah.
They just play, there's no superstar there. You know, it's just like, well, there is, but there isn't. Because the last first-round draft pick was, what, Tim Duncan?
Yeah.
Everybody else, they kind of built. It wasn't like you heard about all these people like crazy. I mean, reality is what it is. That's why I've always loved the Spurs.
They kind of boring, though.
You know, they are. They are boring. There is no flash and dash.
They're vanilla.
But remember, since, 1976 to now, they've always made the playoffs. And that's a phenomenal trip. Not very many teams can say that.
21
Chicago,
years, not 76.
Since 1976.
21 years. This is their 21st straight year in the playoffs.
So what is that, 19?
Nah, 76 would have been. That's 4 years.
I got looked that one up.
21 straight years.
21 straight, but they've been in the playoffs.
They made the playoffs. 21 straight years they made the playoffs.
Okay. Well, I have to defer to you because that's what you do.
That's impressive, yeah.
But it is impressive. So let me ask you, really quick on the Spurs. The whole thing with Kawhi Leonard. Him being hurt. He's a quiet dude. Yeah. He's not one of them guys that runs his mouth and all that. And I feel like he's just catching all this. He's saying he's hurt. And I guess I was a little shocked to hear Tony Parker say what he said about, him. I guess, what did Tony say?
Well, Tony's compared their injuries.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I'm just surprised that.
Well, knowing Tony, having talked to him, interviewed him and stuff. Now, I don't know this for a fact because I haven't talked to him about it, but he's a straight shooter. And I don't know if that's a cultural distinction, him being from France, that he almost doesn't have that filter, that edit button, So I could see Tony saying that, oh, I had the same injury, mine was 100 times worse, and not even thinking I'm taking a shot at Kawhi, just telling you how he feels. Now, I might be wrong, but knowing Tony, I don't think he would have win at Kawhi like that. But nonetheless, if you Kawhi, it's like, yo, it seemed like this dude ripping me, or even if he's not ripping me, that's not having my back.
Yeah.
So they have to smooth things over with Kawhi. Greg Popovich has to smooth things over with Kawhi. He said some things. He's, referenced Kawhi's group instead of his medical team, or, he's made some comments that people have taken as slights to Kawhi. Whether they might not be, he might not have meant it that way, but that's how it's been publicized.
Well, Pop is the same way. He just talks. He's kind of straight what he says.
Yeah, but everybody ain't going. He's had superstars that will take it. Tim Duncan, David Robinson, obviously Parker, Ginobili. Kawhi's a little different. Everybody's not just gonna. You're not gonna be able to put your arm around everybody and hey, I was just saying that to get you,
get you
juiced up and get the guys written up. Some players might not like that, and so that's the question. It's really all gonna come to a head this summer, when if the Spurs can offer Kawhi a supermax, 5 years, $219 million. If they don't offer it to him, then they're disgruntled, and he likely will be heading elsewhere. If they do offer it to him, and he rejects it, then now you know they're going to trade him because they're not going to go into a season, you know, and just hope they can keep him as a free agent and risk losing him for nothing. Or they offer it to him and he signs it. And then everything will seem to be smoothed over. If it doesn't work out, the Spurs can still trade him. They actually might be better off signing him. There are some people in the league that think if they sign him first, that if it doesn't work out, they have a better chance of trading him because then you can send him wherever you want to because he'll have 4 years left on his deal.
So, we could talk basketball all day. I kind of want to talk about the King movement. And if you could give the audience some history on the King movement. You are the president and CEO, right?
President. I'm the founder and the president.
President, CEO.
The King movement is, first of all, it's an acronym for knowledge, inspiration, and nurture through God. And it's a national men's movement that really wants to help men become all that God created them to be. You know.
Why men? Why is the focus on men?
Well,
not just
because
people of color, period.
We feel like, you know, look, it's not a slight, like we don't want to help women or anything like that. But if you look statistically and just at the outcomes, life outcomes, men, particularly black men and men of color, Latino men, are doing worse than women, you know. And the key structure of any society or any strong group of people is the family. And you can't have a strong family without having strong men. So we feel like if we can help strengthen men and help men become who God created them to be, then we help strengthen the family, we help strengthen black youth and other youth of color and just youth period. So that's why we focus on men.
Okay. It makes sense and I agree.
And I think women want strong men. Am I right? They want strong men, so I think women should applaud what we're trying to do.
And that is true. I mean, we both belong to organizations, fraternal organizations that speak to assisting young men of color and bringing them up, and all men. Because God created man. But, you know, particularly when it comes to people of color, we definitely got to do our thing.
And if you're talking about people of color, particularly black men, in America, one of the reasons black men are in the condition we're in is because America has historically tried to keep us from being the men God created us to be. Whether it's slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, on and on. Like, they have wanted to keep us in a perpetual state of boyhood or adolescence. You know, from everything from just the superficial of calling us boy, of it not letting us look them in the eye years ago. In slavery and segregation, we were denied a lot of the things that men have historically done, from providing for your family to protecting your family to having a voice in society. We were denied all of that. So you do still have a lot of arrested development in the black community because of obstacles in our path. You know, in this society, typically boys grow up and end up getting a good job and providing for a family. But a lot of obstacles have kept us from doing that. So, you know, you can go drive through any black community in the inner city and you see grown men on the corners during the middle of the day. And or hanging with teenagers, because the mentality is the same, because the system has put obstacles in their path to keep them from fulfilling their real purpose that God created them for. So we want to come along and try to, you know, address a lot of those issues and help us fulfill the purpose God's given us.
And I think we need those type of movements, which is one of the reasons I support it so much. You know, particularly here in New York City, you got over 86% of the people locked up on Rikers Island all come from the 5 boroughs. And people don't realize that. Like, they're coming from these boroughs. So, you know, coming here, I think the King movement definitely needs to have a strong presence in New York, which I think it's beginning to grow. I know you guys are a national movement, which is also dope because there are other communities. But I got to speak for the community that I come from, which is New York City. And I think that, you know, the work you're doing is definitely admirable and is needed in this community. Now, my understanding is I heard you got to become the new P. Diddy of the game and start a whole King label and all that. You know, you sent me something the other day which I shared with some people and they like. But you know, that's important. I think that you're speaking the language of young people when you get involved in music, and people forget that. You know, just because you're a man of God doesn't mean that you can't be involved with a certain type of swag. You know, my mother always said, "My God isn't a God of punks." You know what I mean?
That's right. That's
and
right.
you know, even Dr. King walked into a pool hall and played a couple of games. You know, I think you got to go to the people, and I think that that's the mistake that a lot of people have made in the past. You know, they'll go, "Oh, well, I'm a man of God, so I can't. Why can't you go in there? If you're going in there to do the right thing, you know what I mean?"
With sinners, tax collectors, you know, just he was with the people, the multitudes. You know, if Jesus was here today, he'd be walking in the hoods and in the streets, and you know, interacting with the people. And so so we, you know, we want to definitely go to where the people are at. You know, and out of love too, not just as a charity case, but just out of love. You know, and I'm a product of the hip hop generation. You know, that's my favorite form of music. I grew up. I still remember the first hip hop song I heard. The first, you know.
What was that?
Rapper's Delight. I was like in 4th grade. I walked into my friend's house in Cincinnati, Ohio. We were going to visit him. I lived in Indiana. And he had this song playing. And I walked in. I was like, I had never heard him, you know, rapping, like nothing like that. I was like, what is that? He said, yo, that's hippity hop. That's the new jam. Like hippity hop, that's what he thought it was called.
Hippity hop?
Yeah, because hip hop, you know. And from that moment, I was sold. Went to have my father take me to the store and buy me the record, and was just into hip hop since then. But so you know, one thing with the King movement, if you look at a lot of organizations that seek to uplift black people or people of color, with a lot of them there's a generation gap. Mm-hmm. You know, you have the older people from the civil rights movement, mm-hmm. but not a lot of youth. You know, or even if they have youth programs, mm-hmm. there's still maybe that 20, 30-something group is not really in there. And so one thing the King movement wants to do is we want to be cross-generational, where we do have older members who can give that wisdom. I've been married 22 years. So I can give wisdom to a young brother who just got married, you know, or who's about to get married or whatever, or early in their marriage and having struggles. But we also want the young people with the energy and they understand the next generation, and so we need them too. You know, we need both, and we want to also cross over socioeconomic lines too. Mm-hmm. We don't want just rich. We don't want just poor. In the black community, there's a gap between the haves and the have-nots. So we want to bridge that gap and bring us all together.
So let's you have a young man with you here today who's the music you sent to me I really think was dope. A couple of people I know thought it was dope, and we're going to talk about some things. But let's introduce him. D, come on over, man. You know, slide that chair on over. Watch the water, brother. Might have to pick a chair.
Yeah, this is Donald Cogdell, or he goes by the name Reflect. When he's
what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Good.
But so we put together something called I Am King, which is the King Anthem. And for years I've thought about wanting to do a King mixtape. Mm-hmm. You know, I even talked to Ninth Wonder about it, and but it never came to pass, you know. And Donald was putting together his album. This your third studio album? Right? Second album. Yeah. And he wanted to do a song. It was his idea to do a song about being a king, and then we started talking a little bit about it, and
Cause you're actually, I saw you in the video, which I was a little shocked. I was like, hold on, is that the
I'm not rapping, but I'm just in there.
You gonna make him rap? Oh, gonna spit some balls.
That love bug Starsky flow. That old school flow.
In the interest of time, I want to throw you in the booth, but I do want you to talk about what your true inspiration was for writing this particular song.
Well, the inspiration, I think, was to change the narrative, right? I think it's interesting. I'm an educator as well. I work out in Flatbush at E-Hall. I run youth programs, and so one of the ladies that work at school safety, she's seen the video, and she said, all those men are married, in that video. That was her observation. That's what she picked up, and I was like, wow, like that's the first time somebody said that. And what is she saying when she says that?
No baby mama drama.
Right, exactly. But she's also saying she doesn't see that in our hip hop videos. Guys are not bragging about loving one woman as much as they should be. Guys are not bragging about loyalty and commitment. And men are out there holding it down for their families. They're out there holding it down for their women, for their children. And that's just not what's publicized. And so that's just one area, but we're trying to change the narrative and also help our young brothers know that they are royalty, know where they... So, you know, for me, it's hard. If I try to look at my past, I got this rhyme that says, I can't trace my roots without Oprah money. You know, because the past has been so muddy, and we don't really have a... it's not right in front of us to see like what's behind us and where we come from and the stock that we come from. And so I just wanted to remind our young boys that they are royalty, our men that they are royalty, and we have nothing to be insecure about. And so we don't have to. We are more valuable than the Jordans that we wear. We are more valuable than the cars that we ride in, which are the things that we brag about. We are the value that God created, and so that was the inspiration.
One of the inspirational scriptures for the King movement, or foundational scriptures, is Psalm 68:31 in the Bible, and it says, "Princes shall come out of Egypt; Ethiopia shall soon stretch forth her hands unto God." Mm-hmm. Obviously, Egypt and Ethiopia are African nations, and so that is a prophecy saying, first of all, saying that men out of Africa are royalty, and that they will submit themselves to God, stretch forth our hands to God. That's a sign of submission. And so that's where, like you said, we're reminding our young people that they're royalty. Because in this society for 400 years, we have been called everything but royalty and treated like everything but royalty. Right. And there's no question that a lot of our young men and women have internalized those feelings, those negative feelings, those feelings of inferiority because they're black. And so we want to change the narrative and say, look, believe what God said about you, that you are a king, that you are royalty. Don't believe what a racist society has said about you or continues to say about you. When you see what happened at Starbucks, when you see an unarmed brother get shot, don't let that steal your self-worth. Don't let that make you think you're less than, or you're not valuable, or your life doesn't matter. Look at what God said about you, that you are a prince, that you are a king, that you are royalty. So that's really what we're trying to do with the video, and Donald, articulated.
And that's what's up, and that's why we're going to take you straight to the booth, because I want to see if you really got bars. Because the one thing, you can say all the positive stuff you want, but if you whack, you whack. So, we're going to have to see what you got.
Let's get it. Let's go.
That whackness don't reach the people. So we got to make sure you got it. Now we're going to have to bring them back.
He got bars.
All right, so we definitely going to throw you in the booth. But you picked a good, and it's crazy because God works. Because now our young people, when they run into each other, what they say, yo, what's up, King? What's up, King? Yeah. So that's really the word. And you guys had this organization going before then, so it ain't like you just rode the coattail or something. You just put it in its proper perspective, and that's what makes it even more dope. So I started hearing it, and every time I started hearing it, I said, damn, Chris on me a hat.
Well, this is an era where black people are excited about Black Panther, the movie, Wakanda and all that. And obviously with the stuff happening with police and the judicial system, a lot of blacks are kind of together and trying to work together. But if you look at our situation historically, we have made black consciousness or black pride a fad that comes around every 20 years or so. This is not new. This was the 60s. This was the late 80s, early 90s, and it's now, but black pride and upliftment and commitment to our people can't be a fad. It should be something that's just a part of your life, and that. So with King, we try to help brothers live in ways that will help us as a people. Like Donald said, brothers are married, family structure. That's critical. Anybody talking about really trying to help uplift the black community, and you're not talking about strengthening the black family, you can look throughout human history there's never been a strong people or group of people or society without a strong family structure. That's why one of the first things that was done to destroy us was to destroy the black family. You know, so yeah, we need to take this excitement and this energy that the young people feel because of Black Panther and other things, and one, make it everlasting, and two, use that energy in a positive way to really work together and, you know, build some institutions and some things that are going to help us going forward, rather than just this being a cool fad and phase that 7 years from now we back to, yeah.
All right.
What's the deal? It's your boy, I meant what he said. You know where I'm at. You know what it is. It's that Harlem Dude with that Brooklyn bounce, man. I'm in the building right now with the King Movement and the new prodigy out of their camp. Soon to be the King label. From the way it's looking, man, like be some money coming through. The new Diddy will be Chris Broussard. But yo, man, I'm gonna get out the way and we're gonna see if we really got these bars you were talking about. You know what I mean? Let's do it.
I say, young kid, come join the revolution, king. You can put it in all caps, never lowercase, it's truth, it's all facts. Yeah, we don't believe in the fallacies. We saw the sniper sitting in the balcony. Yeah, he put a doctor in the scope. Ignorance tried to assassinate hope. Yeah, but we still came in droves. All black clothes, we yelling that Christ rose. Yeah, that just feel good. Obama just gave his last speech. New guy in charge having trouble with his tweets. Picking signs and rallies trying to get the man impeached. And Christians yelling amen to that hate speech. That's the conflict of interest. They locked the front door, we at the back entrance. And I don't claim a party, man, I'm independent. Not left, not right, but we transcended. Yeah, I'm just looking for the dialogue. All I see is the firing squad. Oh my God, all these bodies outlined in chalk. Cause the mouths can't open up and talk. And we see the nations building nuclear weights. Cause they can't come to the table and just communicate well. Yeah, this is the translation, yeah, this is the translation, yeah, this is the translation, yeah. Donald Cogdell is my government. First name came from my parents' blood covenant. Last name came from the blaze of the slave trade. Still feel the effects of the raid. Gotta block the rage. The past, they try to put an eraser to it. Hate drove them to the edge with no breaking fluid. Can't trace my roots without open money. But the root found me, so I don't need the money, yeah. Cause I know where I came from. Love Africa, but that ain't where I came from. Land can't design man, man can't design man. Can a car make a car? Something we don't understand, yeah. So it's something I'm a trumpet man. Stretch that nigga till it snap like a rubber band. Yeah, can't get an ID from the demographics. When he gave us dominion over the geographics. Woo! Yeah. Let me keep
Killed it right now, you know. Appreciate the bars, appreciate the bars. You know what I mean?
To be here,
You might have to ghostwrite for my man Chris over here.
You already know.
You know what I mean?
I told you.
Make some money on this, you know what I'm saying? Movements always need money. Movements and money. Movements and money.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Alright, so really quick, Chris, tell people how they can get in touch with you on social media, and then you do the same.
All right.
Well, you can go to our website, kingmovement.com, Instagram, King Movement. The King Movement is our Instagram page. Our Twitter is what? The King Movement? Just King Movement, Twitter. Follow us on Twitter.
So I understand that you guys have a chant. So I want to definitely get into that. So can all the brothers of King stand up and let's hear this chant? You know what I mean?
You know what to do, Al.
You know, so.
You can get on in here, man.
I can do all things through Christ who
strengthens me.
I can do all things through Christ who
Strengthens me.
I am stronger than the Lord.